It was one of the most eagerly awaited albums of the entire 80s, and one of the most challenging to finish, enduring setback after setback after setback, and the death-defying survival of one of the founding members. Def Leppard persevered to create a celebrated hybrid rock masterpiece. The crazy story of the making of Hysteria and a song-by-song breakdown is next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you love rock and roll of yesteryear, you're going to want to subscribe below for our daily content. Do that right now. And make sure to check out our new merch by clicking the link that I'm pointing to, and check out our exclusive content on Patreon. Both of these things help us curate this channel and produce interviews and videos, so check that out. No Serenade, no Fire Brigade, just Pyromania. The album that made Def Leppard a household name in 1983, selling over 10 million copies in America alone. Pyromania was the biggest selling album by a hard rock band in 1983, and fans couldn't wait to hear what the band was going to come out with next. Def Leppard was positioned to have even greater success for their fourth studio album, but they would have to battle through multiple setbacks over a 3-year odyssey that not only threatened the making of the follow-up to Pyromania, but the very survival of the band. The first complication that the band had to deal with was losing their producer. They were really eager to collaborate again with Pyromania producer Mutt Lange, the great Mutt Lange. But Mutt dropped out of the project after the pre-production sessions. Mutt was physically and mentally exhausted from working nonstop for years. So the late Jim Steinman was brought in to replace Mutt. Steinman, most renowned for writing and arranging with Meat Loaf on the blockbuster album Bat Out of Hell. Only things didn't click between Steinman and Def Leppard. Steinman's plan was to give the fourth album a raw sound, but the band wanted a big, pristine production that had massive crossover potential, like a hard rock version of Thriller. After sacking Steinman, the band tried to self-produce the album, actually with Mutt's engineer Nigel Green, but the early sessions were futile, and recording sessions, they were completely scrapped. Now, the next setback for Def Leppard, gosh, it was horrendous. On New Year's Eve, 1984, Def Leppard drummer Rick Allen, whose bandmates affectionately hailed as the Thunder God, he was driving at a high speed down a country road in Sheffield, England, when he lost control of his Corvette on a sharp left curve. The Stingray whipped around a sharp corner and hit a brick wall, taking a lot of the bricks with it as the car skidded along the wall, flipped over, and finally landed on its roof. Rick's fiancée, Miriam Berenson, she was trapped in the passenger seat and had to be cut free from the wreckage. She was badly bruised and suffered from head injuries, but she was really lucky. It wasn't much worse. Rick was thrown from the vehicle out of the sunroof, landing in a field on the other side of the brick wall. His left arm had been completely ripped off at the shoulder. The specialists were able to reattach his arm, and for a brief time, Rick's condition looked pretty hopeful. But the reattached arm became infected, and they had to amputate it. Needless to say, the band was devastated by what had happened to their brother, and their top priority was, of course, helping him to recover. Now, the band reconvened 4 days later without their beloved drummer at Wisseloord Studios in Holland to resume working on their next album. Still reeling from shock and despair from that, the band took a vote, and they decided to forge ahead. As Joe Elliot recounted, "We knew that Rick wanted us to carry on. We had to do it for him." And really, that's what sets the members of Def Leppard apart from many other bands, their loyalty to their bandmate and brother-in-arms. You'll see why here in a sec. Despite his potentially career-ending disability, Rick wanted to stay with the band, and his bandmates wholeheartedly supported him to do that. They were happy and relieved that he survived and couldn't imagine going on without him. So Allen constructed an electronic acoustic combination drum kit with a set of electric pedals via MIDI, triggered sounds that he would have produced with his left arm. The band stayed the course, working on production in hopes that after he had recharged that, Mutt Lange could return as the album's producer. The delays actually worked in favor of Mutt coming back, giving the band some much-needed good news for a change. However, the brightness faded quickly when Mutt himself had a car accident, suffering a leg injury. Then Joe Elliot contracted a vicious case of the mumps. That created another holdup because he couldn't sing his lead vocals for quite a few weeks. The hits just kept on coming for this band. True adversity, which happens when greatness is attainable. At last, the chaos stabilized. Mutt and the band just hunkered down and began to hit a continuous, unabated flow to create what would be a monumental album, making a mega hit record. That was always the vision all along for Def Leppard's highly anticipated follow-up to Pyromania. How do you top that? Like I said, Mutt's goal was to produce the hard rock version of Michael Jackson's Thriller, with every single track being strong enough to be a potential single. Ironically, Thriller was the album that kept Pyromania from reaching the top of the album charts back in '83, as it did with pretty much every contender from February 26, 1983 to about April 14, 1984. And I'm sure that it wasn't a coincidence that there were 7 singles from Hysteria. Exactly like there were 7 singles from Thriller, all went to the top 10. The original title for the album was actually Animal Instinct. It was the Thunder God himself that came up with the new title, Hysteria, a word that really perfectly depicted the media craziness that ensued after his devastating car crash. Stuff of legends. As we go into this album breakdown, song by song, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. Zenni, I got to tell you, they're so cost-effective. You can get 3 or 4 pair of glasses what you would normally pay for one. So you can have a lot of different colors and styles to bring something new to your look. Go to Zenni.com. You can design your own pair today. So the freshly titled Hysteria featured the latest in recording technology, best displayed on the tracks Love Bites, Rocket, Excitable.
Are you excitable? Are you excitable?
God's War. The vocal harmonies were enhanced by Lange's studio techniques that included auto-pitching the background vocals on every single track. Now, the guitar parts emphasize melody instead of traditional crunchy riffs. All the drum sounds on Hysteria were drum samples recorded by Mutt and the engineers, and then played from a Fairlight CMI. The band and the production crew slaved over every single detail. Every sound that was recorded on the album was just meticulously crafted. At long last, overcoming unbelievable odds, Hysteria, Def Leppard's triumphant 4th studio album, was finally released on August 3rd, 1987. And wow, was it worth the wait? Let's drop the needle on side 1 of this perseverant masterpiece. Okay, so Hysteria opens with Women. Def Leppard's biblical storytelling of how God created women to fuel the passion of men. It was a tribute to women rather than a typical chest-pumping tune about lustful conquest. Women was actually the lead single from Hysteria. It was in the US and Canada, it was. And the track's disappointing run gave Hysteria an inauspicious start in North America. The song actually stalled at number 80, I believe, on the Billboard Hot 100. Although it did rise to number 7 on the rock chart, that too was a letdown given the hype surrounding the unveiling of Hysteria. Dropping Women is the debut from Hysteria. It was actually a calculated old-school strategy called the setup track, meaning that the band instinctively knew that the song was not going to be a big hit. They wanted the first track for coveted American radio to, resonate with their hardcore fans that were with the band through thick and thin. Since their debut LP, On Through the Night, that came out in 1980. Strategy, though, looked like it was going to backfire after Women and the next two singles that followed failed to generate the massive sales numbers for the album that the band and the label had anticipated. Now, the second cut on side one is Rocket. That was the seventh and final single from Hysteria. Really big seventh track, too, as it went to number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100. Went to number 5 on the rock chart, number 15 in the UK, and then it went top 5 in New Zealand and Ireland as well. Now, Rocket is full of backmasking that includes the backward singing of the We're Fighting with the Gods of War chorus from Gods of War, the track that begins side 2 of Hysteria. Followed by the blast-off of a rocket launch and a simulated NASA dispatch transmission with ascending spacecraft. The song also samples drum beats from the Royal Drummers of Burundi. The African percussion ensemble that played for the Kings of Tutsi since the 1960s. The Royal Drummers of Burundi also caught the attention of Adam Ant and the group Bow Wow Wow back in the early 80s. Joe Elliot first heard the Royal Drummers of Burundi while listening to a friend's cassette. He borrowed the tape from him to make a loop with guitar chords over the top of the loop that he saved as a draft for a track that was later recorded in a higher key for Rocket. The track was initially intended to be an instrumental with only a short chorus, but they added the words Satellite of Love from a Lou Reed tune to fatten up the chorus. And that led to verses being written that included the title characters of famous classic rock songs. There was Sgt. Pepper, Benny and the Jets, Gene Genie, lives on his back. The Gene Major Tom,
ground control to Major Tom.
Jumpin' Jack Flash. Johnny Be Good.
Oh, Johnny, go, go. Johnny Be Good.
There's also Killer Queen, just to name a few. There's a few others as well. It's a very cool tip of the hat to rock royalty, I thought. I remember listening to Hysteria in my headphones for like a year straight when this song became like my generation's Sgt. Pepper. It was an album that every one of my friends had. We listened to it incessantly. Well, this song in particular is such a great headphone song. With all the lights off, this song rocking with all of its layers, including the little guitar licks and the different samples and sounds that drove it. Just such a cool experience at 12 years of age to get lost in. Mind-blowing for sure. You'll have to share your memories of this album in the comments below. By the way, when I say it's like the Sgt. Peppers of my generation, I'm just saying the fact that everybody listened to it. I'm not comparing it per se to Sgt. Pepper. I'm just saying that everybody had it. Everybody listened to it. We talked about it at lunch, at recess. It was something to behold. So Animal is next on this epic collection. It actually took almost 3 full years to develop Animal. The longest of any other track on Hysteria. The song was originally penned by co-lead guitarist Phil Collen. Phil recorded the track as a demo, and Joe Elliot delivered some rough vocals for the song at an early session, I believe it was in Paris. And when Mutt heard Joe's vocals, he was very excited about the potential of Animal. He called Joe's recording a killer vocal. Now, the song was rewritten and given the Mutt treatment with a big chorus and a catchy vocal outro that gives the song a euphoric finish. Now, it makes sense that the song was rewritten around that killer vocal because, to me, Animal has always felt like two different songs mashed together. The verses feel like a slower, more heartfelt meandering of a relationship, like when Joe says, just like a river runs, like a fire needs flame, I burn for you. And then, Joe hits us with that catchy chorus that shifts the song into a higher gear and pulls you in. It's a very cool dynamic that even to this day sounds very fresh and engaging. With the always distinct Def Leppard vocal harmonies, just amazing. It's always been one of my favorite tracks by the band. And who doesn't love that Joe Elliot laugh at the end of the song? I always thought that was cool. Nice touch. Animal was chosen as the lead single in most of the world, except in the US and Canada. It's actually the song that elevated Def Leppard to superstar status in the UK. Surprisingly, the band's previous work, including singles from Pyromania, didn't translate as well in the band's native country as it did in America. But Animal changed all of that. Became Def Leppard's first top 10 in the UK. It climbed to number 6, and it went even higher in Ireland, hit number 3. Animal peaked at number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100, went to number 5 on the US rock chart. It really set the band up to rocket to the top of the charts, both the album and singles that would follow. I think that was really the setup track. Def Leppard's super power ballad, Love Bites, is the 4th cut on side 1. When Mutt Lange brought Love Bites to the band, it was written in the vein of a country-style ballad. The band was really quite afraid of the track at first, I guess. It was unlike anything they had ever tackled before. Of course, they had a rock element such as the vocoder that electronically alters Mutt Lange, delivering the opening line, "If you've got love in your sights, watch out, love bites."
Watch out. Love bites.
And in the song's fade out, we hear Mutt again on the vocoder, repeating the opening line and adding, "Yes, it does bloody hell." Mutt also created thick backing vocals that were similar to R&B crossover hits of the 80s. Phil Collen once said of the song, and I quote, "It was just a standard rock ballad, but it had something else going for it. Lyrically, it kind of painted a picture, and in a song you always want to do that, paint a picture. Like on a dark desert highway, first line of Hotel California, great song. It just paints an image for you straight off the bat, and that's the sign of a really good song. It takes you right there. Love Bites did that as well." End of quote.
On a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair. When you make love, do you look in your mirror?
It's very interesting. I was telling you that Mutt Lange actually wrote the first version of this song. He played it for the band on an acoustic guitar. And actually, Phil Collen felt that the song sounded like an Eagles song. In the song, Joe gets pretty intense, saying all the things that love does. It bites, it bleeds, it brings him to his knees, it lives, it dies, it begs and it pleads. He seems to be talking about a relationship, but he gets very personal in the chorus. Another interesting fact, it was the only track on Hysteria that featured keyboards. I remember that me and my friends, we requested this song all the time at school dances. This was the go-to power ballad for that year in junior high. Sure was that way all over. Love Bites was a #1 pop smash. It was the 5th single from the album in the US and was riding that huge momentum of its predecessor, Pour Some Sugar on Me. Love Bites is actually the highest charting single for Def Leppard, their lone #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The single also went to #3 on the rock chart, #11 in the UK, and it went to #2 in New Zealand. It really sealed the deal for the album, regardless of what the subsequent singles would do. After that, it was over. Now getting into Pour Some Sugar on Me, the anthem that shot Hysteria into blockbuster orbit. It was the last song written for Hysteria. It was finalized in just 2 weeks, much faster than the other tracks on the album. Even though Hysteria was in the home stretch of completion with 11 stellar tracks, Mutt Lange felt that they were missing that big crossover hit. And that's where the muse went into full swing. And actually, we'll cover the story of this song and all of side 2 of Hysteria, as well as its impact since being released on our volume 2 of our Hysteria breakdown. Hey, there are some albums that are so great, we have to turn them into 2-parters. So to end on, here's what Joe Elliot said about Hysteria in an interview that I did with him recently.
It's like God's plan or something. There's this thing where it's like, keep going, you'll get there. And we did. We were just like Monty Python. We wouldn't give up. We were like the knight that had all his arms and legs cut off, like, I'll bite you to death. we were just determined to get it done, you know, and we wanted it to be different. And we were only 22, 23 years old, right? We didn't know what we were doing. What we tried to create was the ultimate rock record with like, to be down with everything in this. What does that thing do? Let's use it. We tried to make a Sgt. Pepper for our generation. That was the blueprint. Yeah. And that's why it took so long. We went down so many dead ends and they didn't work that we came back up. The actual thing you hear didn't take that long. There was about 18 months of complete bollocks, just trying to get there, you know, because they probably had it all mapped out. We were flapping in the wind. We didn't know what to do. It just took time and then it all fell into place.
These are albums that have spoken to every generation.
Songs.
You know? Yeah.
End of story. It's all songs. It's just songs. It really is. It's all about the songs.
So stay tuned for part 2 of our Hysteria breakdown with more Joe Elliot coming soon. Make sure to leave us a comment about this historic rock record below. Such a blockbuster. Definitely want to hear your Hysteria stories and your thoughts on the songs and the band, the mighty Def Leppard, below. Now, if you like our content, we do invite you to be a permanent part of our channel by subscribing below. Make sure to check us out on Patreon for even more content. And make sure to check out our merch, including our Vintage Years collection. It actually includes Def Leppard for our 1987 year. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.